So I saw this, I'm not going to claim credit because I saw it on the internet at some point in time. There was some guy giving kind of like a conference, CLE type thing. And he says, look, nobody wakes up saying, I love being a tax attorney. You know, nobody wakes up saying
that's always correct. Even
nobody wakes up like
a tax attorney.
Oh my gosh,
Tom.
I love being a corporate attorney for, like pharmaceutical companies. Like that nobody wakes up doing that and thinking they love that job. And oh my God, you don't see like little kids dressing up as a pharmaceutical attorney for Halloween. People forget the aspect. You're an attorney and counselor at law, and that whole counselor piece is advice, right? It's not. It's attorney is what you do in the
don't
courtroom.
give that advice.
The attorney stuff is knowing the rules, knowing where to file stuff, knowing how to do that. The counselor part is this is what you should do, this is what you shouldn't do. Well, it's like one of those people pay like $100,000 to go eat with like Warren Buffett or whatever. You go eat lunch with LeBron or something, and they raise all that money for charity. It's like, nobody does that. Like, what am I worth? Like I buy you lunch to go with me. It's kind of one of those.
I think more people. Yeah. I think more people would pay money to not have to go to lunch with me.
I think that's okay. You can keep it. That's kind of an odd thing. I don't know if obviously people watch from other states, but in Texas, the judges are all elected. Everybody from the Supreme Court on down to the Justice of the Peace are all elected. Yeah, and then name ID, like we talked about, is a big issue where we have. Certain names that are at the top of the ticket are always going to have opponents. And then do you know the names of the 13 district judges? I know you do because you could probably rattle them off in Collin County, but you got counties with 50 plus judges. Well, and they're unhappy to begin with because it's family law is always the best people at their worst time in court. They're always pointing fingers, cursing, yelling, saying things they should never have said about each other. It's awful. And then you have criminals, and they're the worst people who show up, and they're on the best behavior when they're in court. And they're smiling, we're joking, we're having a good time, we're talking, and there's just very polite. And you'll sentence somebody to prison, and they'll say thank you, and they walk out. It's a little bit different in family law context. Yeah.
As long as we get some good laughs. I did have a client this week that gave us some feedback on the podcast.
Do you have clients that show up on the podcast? Have you invited some clients back?
Have we had any clients on the podcast
Not yet.
Why not?
Not yet.
See,
we have them lined up.
They can give you some perspectives. So you'll have the judge perspective. You'll have the client perspective.
Yeah.
You can. I'm sure you had other lawyers on.
Part of one of my hobbies is to talk, and I say hobby because like if you love what you do, then you'll never work a day again in your life.
Yeah, that's correct.
Theoretically, I should just describe this as work. I do.
Do you actually believe that?
I'm a workahol. I'm a workaholic. Okay. I'm addicted to workahol.
What?
I love what I do most of the time. The only time I don't love what I do is when I am supposed to be spending time with Summer and we've got something planned and I'm late because of work. Then I do not want to be on the phone or doing whatever. But almost all the rest of the time, I receive energy from what I do.
So I saw this. I'm not going to claim credit because I saw it on the internet at some point in time. There was some guy giving kind of like a conference, CLE type thing. And he says, look, nobody wakes up saying, I love being a tax attorney. Nobody wakes up saying
that's always correct. Even
nobody wakes up like
a tax attorney.
Oh my gosh,
Tom.
I love being a corporate attorney for like pharmaceutical companies. Like that nobody wakes up doing that and thinking they love that job. And oh my God, you don't see like little kids dressing up as a pharmaceutical attorney for Halloween. Like that doesn't happen, right? That's
we
not
have
a
got
dream.
We have got to get Zoe, and Jackson dressed up as a pharmaceutical rep,
right?
Just so I can post that picture on this episode.
Well, it's fine. But so nobody wakes up. What ends up happening is if you get good at your job and people respect you for it and start asking you to tell them how to do that job or how you do it, that's when the kind of the stuff that you love doing comes into play, and then
it gets
you can
rewarding.
Say, and then if you're a big time corporate attorney and you get to fly around on a private jet, I love that. I don't love being. The aspect of some again, slave in some big corporate deal. Nobody does that. So I take a little bit of say, wait. Like I love to work, but I don't, there's better things in life. Let's put it that way.
I like the reward of goodness that came out of whatever it was that I did that day. feeling like I had a productive day, those are better days than days where I go out and, I've gone to Disney World a lot recently. I've spent time on the beach. Like, I can kind of do whatever I want whenever I want, and I always come back to working. I mean, I could retire from the firm. The firm runs completely without me if I wanted to. But I come in and do things additive for growth and expansion, and just I'm just focused on bigger and better of everything. That's why we do the podcast. And you really nailed it a second ago, because you said when you're teaching others what you do. Well, the podcast is my method for teaching others what we do, and for me, fulfilling my vision. And my vision is to change the way that people approach the divorce process. I'm in the business of ending unhealthy marriages. I acknowledge that. But the ideal ending to them is to make it a healthy marriage again. I save a lot of divorces from happening. I save a lot of marriages. Those are some of the clients that I want to try and find, because there are people out there that will tell you, you changed my life in what you told me. And in talking to you for the amount of time that we did and working together, I spend a lot of time actually coaching people on how to have a healthy marriage. And that's a big portion of the show. Okay. Or if you can't if you can't make it a healthy marriage again, then we need to get them as healthy of a divorce as we possibly can.
People forget the aspect. You're an attorney and counselor at law, and that whole counselor piece is advice, right? It's not. It's attorney is what you do.
Don't give that advice.
The attorney stuff is knowing the rules, knowing where to file stuff, knowing how to do that. The counselor part is, this is what you should do, this is what you shouldn't do. And I always told my clients, again, I did criminal defense, so it's I'm going to give you the worst thing that could possibly happen and tell you what that line is, and then we're going to try to work back from that line to see where we can get you. It didn't always work, right? I mean, sometimes what the worst thing was, that's what they got. Maybe sometimes deservedly so, depending on what you got and what you did. But that was where the line was, and kind of where that rule of law comes in. And so, this is the line. So as an attorney, I can work back from that, use the system, use the processes, use the procedures to get you off that to something better. And hey, it may end up with nothing. It may end up even better than when you started before. But that's not the way people feel when they're getting sued. They always think it is the worst thing, and maybe it is. Might be the worst thing that ever happened to them. But you just have to, as the attorney, counsel them about what to expect, what to do, and do it well, hopefully.
I think in what we do is the first primary thing that I do is I change their paradigm, because, and that's disguised in a few different ways, but that fundamentally that's what I'm doing, is changing their paradigm.
Nobody knows what that means when you say that. You know
so
that, right?
I'm going to let me explain it.
Yeah, I bet you are.
So most people think it's us versus them, war, fight, and that's how you go into court. If instead you focus on what is the healthy solution to this family's problem, what is actually healthy, then that's where you find cooperation in people, and you can have mom be the best mom that she can be, and dad be the best dad that he can be, and we find out things that work. And I also like principles of balance. For example, you've got a case where one parent makes $300,000 a year, the other parent makes $75,000 a year. If they were to pay the guideline child support on that, from the higher earning parent to the lower earning parent, that gives, give or take, depending on how many kids, about $2,000 a month, which is $24,000 a year. So now you move the higher parent from $350 to $325, and you move the lower parent from $75 to $100. That $25,000 difference for the lower earning parent is monumental in what they can provide for the children. And I've had a lot of clients who we were going to be able to have the lower parent paying child support. We were going to have the higher parent, and I have this. I'm going to not necessarily talk about it specifically, but I have my client's written permission to talk about this particular case, where there was a client, his wife was making $120,000, got demoted to $80 because of the affair she was having, and he was not stay-at-home dad, but he was the higher earning parent, made $300,000 a year. He did all the cleaning of the house. He did all of the cooking, breakfast, packed lunch, cooked dinner. And was helped with the homework. I mean, was Mr. Mom and working parent at the same time, type of thing. And instead of paying me another $30,000 to win this case and take it all the way to trial, he used that $30,000 plus a couple, he put like $50,000 down on a house so that she could have a nice place for the kids to live when the kids were with her. He would have a nice place, and he also paid her child support. And why? It's because he was buying the best mom for her that she could be. And later down the road, I was at a wedding, with a friend of ours' wedding, and his kids started talking about the case. And annually, I've had a meeting with him about, are you sure that was the right thing to do? Because it was instrumental in me creating the brand of soft divorce. Because what I had first was, divorce doesn't have to be so hard. And then I was like, all right, well, let me see if I can find a website. easydivorce.com. Oh, that was taken the day that internet was invented. So what's not hard? Soft divorce. And now I have healthydivorce.com, which is really what I mean by soft divorce, but it cost me like $20,000 to buy that website. My mission is to change the way that people go through the divorce process. Those attorneys that are marketing, we fight, well, they're going to attract the clients that just want to fight. I want to attract a client who wants to end the fighting, not increase it. Sometimes we have to increase it in order to end it, but that's never our first choice. What I like to do is declare peace and then negotiate the terms of the peace. And so for me, anything that works on that mission and that leaves something behind, because I don't have kids and I feel a little bit guilty about that. Like should I reveal it? So
you have fur babies.
I do, which sucks because you know how you should never have to put your children
in jail while you go on vacation is what you're doing?
No, we hire somebody that they're fine. Somebody comes to the house.
Those dogs have the life.
Yeah, they're good. They're good. They're still way cheaper than college and private school or any of that, right? But I feel a little bit guilty of I feel like I should have had kids and I'm letting God down. So, changing the world as much as I can, at least in this, is almost to me feels like a penance for that. And I know why we don't have kids and things. And I've actually thought about having a conversation with Summer. God, when this airs, I'm like this.
You're getting way too deep.
I am getting way too deep. But yeah, I know.
I'm not getting in on that.
I have started to have almost a midlife crisis about not having kids. So I don't know. And we have 4 adoptive kids that we love as our own. And, 2 or 3 of them like us at any given point in time. You put them you spin them on a wheel, and this one likes us a lot, and there's one coming into liking us again, and there's one coming out of liking us, and there's one that doesn't like us again. Just spin the wheel.
I'll loan you Jackson and Zoe, and when they start fighting...
No. I just want Jackson.
Yeah.
You'll be
like a week.
Jackson
this is what you're at. You're responsible. Go.
I can tell my dogs which one's my favorite because they don't know. And I can tell her kids which one's my favorite.
You should not do it. No, see, this is going to come back to bite you at some point in time.
I love all 3 of her kids. I think very highly of all 3 of them. I don't think I know Zoe well enough. She's not old enough to any of that. But I think Jackson is awesome.
We were at this event last year, and Dana was bidding on all these auction items. And
nobody else was bidding, and I was trying to help them raise money.
And they were all lunches. Yeah. And my
all
son,
lunches,
he was 10 at the time, and he goes, "Man, Dana must really like lunch."
He does.
I do.
So.
It's one of those things that's very important later on in life.
Well, he was cheering Dana on, and I was like, Jackson, he's spending money for this stuff.
Well, he was cheering me on, and it was working. Maybe I shouldn't have kids.
You kept winning. Oh my God, the more money I spend, the more I win on an auction. Who would have thought?
So and I haven't actually gone to any of those lunches. I really need to get to those lunches.
You do.
Yeah, well, it's like one of those people who pay $100,000 to go eat with Warren Buffett or whatever. You go eat lunch with LeBron or something, and they raise all that money for charity. I was like, nobody does that. What am I worth? I buy you lunch to go with me. It's kind of one of those.
I think more people. Yeah. I think more people would pay money to not have to go to lunch with me.
That's okay. You can keep it.
Can I let me just make the donation?
Right. I should try that next time I'm running for office. Be like, hey, if you donate money, I won't call you again or pester you to go to lunch.
I don't know if you can make that promise.
This will get you a year's worth of no calls.
So apparently you'd have to be 71 before you could actually go through with that, because in your position, you're going to have to be raising money. What?
Well, I wouldn't
every
say
4 years,
forever.
right?
I just said, a few months.
A few months.
Right.
I won't ask you again this year.
Right.
He says in December.
Depending on the level of donation, it could be like, hey, if you donate the max amount, I won't call you for the rest of the year. Kind of thing. Till next election, kind of a thing. That's kind of an odd thing. I don't know if, obviously people watch from other states, but in Texas, the judges are all elected. Mm-hmm. Everybody from the Supreme Court on down to the Justice of the Peace are all elected. A lot of history behind that, but that's basically the way it plays out. And so we have to run on partisan elections, and you get weird swings between types of judges everywhere. And we just had our election, and worked out well. I didn't have an opponent, so I was deemed elected. And here I am. So thanks.
So this
next
time,
4 years.
I thought they did something that was actually wise, because when we voted on the deemed elections previously,
terrible idea.
What, this time?
Yes.
Okay.
So, I know what you're talking about.
As a
Go
voter,
ahead.
so then I'll explain it and we'll hear both sides of this. So what I thought was in there is they didn't let me vote for you.
Right.
They just had it there. And so I didn't have to make as many choices. And so I was thinking, maybe more people will go through the actual contested ballots because there's not so many, and they won't just abandon the ballot towards the end of it. But the other side of the coin was, I was like, you can't see how popular you are, and you're not having people pick and select your name each time to scare off your next opponent. Is that what you were? Why?
Yeah, there's various things about that that are, I would state are not necessarily the best from a political standpoint. So my understanding of the legislature doing that last go around was they were trying to speed up the process, like you were talking about. Go into the voting booth, vote on the ones that are actually contested, and then walk out so that other people can get in there and vote. A little bit of irony is that we had fewer people voting this election than we've had the last couple elections. But what ends up happening is that you get to that last page, and it's a list of people who didn't have opponents and are deemed elected. Now, that can be good in some respects because, again, speeds things up. It can also be bad, and some of the things you pointed out. We used to be able to see how many people saw my name or at least voted for it, checked the box, and did I have more than the people ahead of me or the people after me, and how much more? Mm-hmm. Did it go down by 500 votes for each race? And was that just, every race, 500 people would go, like you said, I'm done with this. I don't know any of these people. I don't want to vote anymore.
Or did more people vote for you this year versus last time?
So those are things that as a politician you want to know.
Oh, yeah.
And now
data is
we'd have
everything.
no idea.
Yeah.
And then there's the aspect of name recognition and things. So to the point of why they did it,
well, I
you
think
have
that's
certain
why
counties.
is it Mound, the tax assessor? I think the reason why he keeps winning is because everybody gets his name on their tax statements, and everybody has to actually write them a check.
Nobody writes me checks. I'm a judge. I don't accept any P.O. box. No, I'm kidding.
So you have to. That has to all go to your treasurer of your campaign, right?
Yeah, well, so it goes to us as we were very small campaigns. It's not like the national stuff you see, congressmen pulling in millions of dollars. We don't. That's not what happens here. Yeah. We're not at those levels.
Is there a limit of how much money a judge in your position can raise?
No, not a limit of how much I can raise. There's the limits on what people can give, what law firms can give, and things like that. Those are specifically enumerated, and we have limits on that. But like we were saying, you get these points where you just don't get the data anymore. You don't get the information anymore, and so it's very difficult to base what you're going to do. Or if you're interested, let's say somebody wants to run against a judge. In the past, you could look and say, "Oh my gosh, look, this person's just obviously not well liked. He got a lot fewer votes than the person who came after him, and that person must be well liked." And so, depending on maybe I want to run against that guy because I have a better shot at it.
Maybe I don't want to run against that guy.
Yeah, and then name ID, like we talked about, is a big issue where we have certain names that are at the top of the ticket are always going to have opponents. And then do you know the names of the 13 district judges? I know you do because you could probably rattle them off in Collin County. But you got counties with 50-plus judges. You got family court judges, criminal court judges, civil judges, county court judges, justices of the peace, associate judges. You have hundreds of judges in certain respects in certain counties that are big and populous, and you're expecting everybody to know all 75 or 100 plus names. If you got 50 judges, people running on those, know the difference between them, know their policies, decide who they're going to vote for. It's not realistic, but it doesn't make you feel good if you're, Judge 50 on that list and nobody knows who you are, and your opponent, nobody knows who they are, and all of a sudden you get voted in because you either have an R or a D next to the name, not because of the job you're doing or the qualifications that you have. So that's a problem, but that's not something I can fix.
Just not looking at your name, that's one less impression that you have for marketing purposes.
Oh, yeah.
Well, and we're not into marketing, but we want people to know we're doing a good job. We want people to know that we're trying to, move their cases and do it well. So we get a lot of that stuff. We get a lot of people who are mad at me on Twitter, and there's people that have made decisions on their cases that are very upset with me and that I have to deal with on a regular and constant basis. And that becomes an issue. So that idea of like any press is good press, that's not always the case, because you'd rather say, look, this is what happened, and have people move on. Inevitably, I think I make everybody upset in some respects, which is good, I think, as a judge, right? Nobody likes the refs. If anybody's high-fiving refs after a football game, something's wrong, right?
Yeah.
There's a problem there.
Well, you're not the only judge. I mean, I've said many times, I've heard a lot of judges that say if they see both sides walking out unhappy after court, especially in family law, then they think they did a good job.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and they're unhappy to begin with, because it's family law is always the best people at their worst time in court. They're always pointing fingers, cursing, yelling, saying things they should never have said about each other. It's awful. And then you have criminals, and they're the worst people who show up, and they're on the best behavior when they're in court. And they're smiling, we're joking, we're having a good time, we're talking, and there's just very polite. And you'll sentence somebody to prison, and they'll say thank you, and they walk out. It's a little bit different in family law context.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've seen some of the ones on the internet where they're not saying thank you.
They might say something later. We do get that too, because they record, of course, phone calls at the jail. So you might hear some things after the fact where, what they really thought necessarily about what I was doing and how I was doing it. So, yeah, it's fun. Those parts can be entertaining. And, sometimes, again, people take them way too seriously, but there's not really a good way to offend me. I don't get easily offended. I just roll with the punches on that stuff. It is what it is.
Did you have... And you came up as a prosecutor for a long time, right?
Right. So I was a prosecutor in Dallas County for about 5.5 years, and then I became a defense lawyer, and did that for about a decade, and then was appointed.
You were a
to the
defense
bench.
lawyer for 10 years?
Yeah.
I didn't think it was that long. I guess that makes sense, though, based on how old they are.
And most of the cases in my court are criminal, right? If we're looking at sheer numbers and volume of cases, I have a lot more criminal cases than I do anything else. It's just the nature of how we've assigned our cases in Collin County. Certain counties have just like criminal only courts where they'll do those things because they just have so many of those cases in certain counties. And we're starting to specialize a little bit in Collin County.
Is there an exclusively criminal court?
No.
I didn't think so.
There's an exclusive civil court, and then there's 3 exclusive family law courts. And then my court handles all manner of cases. So I actually prefer that. If you had asked me when I got appointed, I thought that that's what would happen eventually, is that I would handle only criminal cases. But I do really find that I enjoy the other stuff. And it's a good mix. It's not always the same thing over and over again. So I like that, and different lawyers come in. So I would have never gotten to meet you or, do this if it was only criminal only. So
well, I would have come and said hi, but
would you have though?
Yeah.
Yeah.
In Collin County, I go see all the judges.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's what we call sucking up as it relates to the
I know
judges.
all the county court judges, and I'm never in front of them. I guess theoretically we could be on.
When it's a good lawyer, you want to make relationships, right? That's what people always are worried about, people donating money to judges. And I get that too, right? It's an odd deal that people are upset that I might get, tagged for sitting here with your book in front of me or something as though I'm selling it, which I'm not. But at the same time,
you are very clear. Tom says, "Don't buy my book."
But at the same,
so you dedicated that book to him,
right?
So
Yeah,
that
page 1, dear Tom. Thank you for all the. But no, I mean, but somebody can write me a $5,000 check for my campaign, and that's perfectly fine and reasonable, right? of course, that sounds weird when you're saying it. Like, what? I can't sit here and have you shill your book for all the masses that are listening to the podcast, but you could write me a check for my campaign right after we're done here. And people then get, of course, frustrated. And you get, it's in family law cases.
For the record, I'm not writing
No, you're not.
after this podcast.
Did we not agree to that before I came on? Like, was that not the?
There's no quid pro quo for the podcast at all. You're here.
Was that not the whole? Yeah, they're going to be checking the statements now, right? Because we have to file reports on that. Wink, wink. No, it gets silly, and in family law cases, you get that person donated, or they donated to the judge, and so clearly the decision.
If there was a judge that I thought would give me favoritism on a case, I would not donate to them.
Right, you donate to their opponent, right?
I want a judge who is going to be just consistent and give me a ruling on base what we present. Now, having friends that are judges, especially or when I go in front of you, I'm that much more careful and paranoid because I want to give you a good impression, and I don't want to look bad in front of you. I don't want to make a mistake of accidentally not be honest with you I don't know what, but
it does put more parameters.
My expectations for myself are that much higher to go in front of you.
It puts more, hurdles in front of you because there's other things at stake more so than what's going on in the case. And what people don't often understand is, number one, neither you nor me are going to risk our careers and our good name
on any case
for anybody. Like I've got, again, it kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier. There's going to be another case down the line. Yep. So why would I ever put all that in jeopardy to have somebody think that I'm a POS, that I'm a liar, and that I'm not to be trusted? And that happened a lot with defendants. Sometimes I would have defendants even ask, what can we do? What can we do? Insinuating that there's some kind of money that could be paid or bought. Or they would want to offer me more money as though I'm going to handle their case poorly if I don't. Well, what if I pay you like a real lawyer? Like if I pay you good money, you're going to do a lot better on this case, right? Get me what I want.
Well, it depends.
It's ridiculous.
If there is something a resource that money buys.
Yeah, but no, that's not what they're getting
or
at.
Something.
No,
yeah,
we're not talking about that. We're talking
There is a way. I mean, if you give a lawyer $1 million versus $100,000, you can do a lot more than you can do, or 100,000 instead of 10, or 10 instead of 1. The amount of things that you can do for different budget.
Right, but that's for other stuff. That's not for the lawyer's work.
Right.
That's not for what he's getting paid to do the job.
I mean,
that's hey, I'm going to hire an expert. I'm going to have this video done. I'm going to do this map. I'm going to call the people, whatever.
These depositions.
Right.
I'm going to dig every little rabbit hole and see what I'm going to
hire a private investigator to go look down these witnesses. Those are all things that are attenuated, but not for the job of what the lawyer does, and certainly not for what I do. And so when you have somebody that's joking around about that or making, well, let's just say not joking around, that they claim that there's some conspiracy and that somebody's going to do something, it's really the opposite. It really is, because if you come into my court, let's say it's tomorrow Saturday, but let's say it's Monday, you come into court, there's going to be a heightened sense of the fact that we just hung out for a couple hours and I was on your podcast and not promoting your book.
I'm at risk. Yeah, I'm at risk. You're going to be harder on me than you normally would, and I'm okay with that. But I will rise to the occasion. I will rise to it.
There's the issue of friendship as well. Lawyers are friends. There's people I was friends with before I became a judge. That doesn't stop.
Well, that's really why I know most of the county court judges. I point over here because I'm usually on the left side and they're on that side of the hallway, right? But I know a lot of them. I help them out on their campaigns and donate to them too. It's because I know that they're good judges.
Well, and you, again, if you're friends with people, that doesn't mean you stop doing that. And you're going to run into some issues. And there are times when you can say, you know what, I'm not going to handle this case because of the relationship or because of where we are. And if that was the case on Monday, then that might be where the position where I come in and say, you know what, it's probably not best. I don't want anybody thinking that this is some kind of deal or that was planned or something, because it does cause issues and people being upset. I'd rather them feel like the right decision was made in their case. So that happens a lot where you run into these issues with lawyers. But it kind of goes back to being somewhat silly on people's ideas of how this operates. It's not. We're around the same people. We're naturally going to be in the same events. We go to the same CLEs, the same bar association events, the Christmas parties.
It's unavoidable.
Yeah, you're going to be around. And that's a good thing for your lawyer in many respects, because you want them to be involved and know the judges. And then they can give you the good advice of, hey, let me tell you what this judge is going to do. I've known him for so long, or I've known her, and this is how she treats those cases. And with that experience comes, that knowledge that you can impart and say, okay, well, we're not going to do that on your case because Judge Tom will destroy us if we bring that into his court. And then he's going to be mad at me because I know better. And he's going to be twice as mad because I'm his friend, or I've known him for a while. And if I do that, it's going to work out that much harder for you. And I lose credibility. And once that's gone, that's gone.
Yep.
Or you as a client, we're going to lose credibility, and he's not going to rule in your favor, and you're going to lose any chance you had at getting whatever it is that you wanted.
God, I hope I remember the things that make you mad so that I accidentally...
Yeah, just write those down.
We do. We try to. My problem is I don't necessarily always catch them all.
It's all on camera.
I assure you, if I ever do that, I've just made a stupid mistake. I'd never intentionally do it. But.
Well, and people find out. Like I will say this: I made a mistake the other day. I came into court and I was expecting certain things, and we had a conversation about it. And I went back, I researched it. I was wrong, and I emailed the parties. I said, "Hey, this is how we're going to handle it, and sorry for the delay. I was wrong. Here's the facts. Here's the law as I understand it, and we fixed it." That's what the law is supposed to do. I'm not going to be perfect every time. And hopefully I'll get to the point where I can, know a lot of that stuff and not have to rely on looking at things up. But if that's what happens, that's what happens. So, if things are slowed down a little bit because I have to look everything up, then that's okay. We've got time. That's the justice moves slow. So it really is for a reason.